With Season 2 of The Bad Batch airing tomorrow, I wanted to take a look back at all of the figures from Season 1 that I have in my collection. Some of these are customs or edited in some way, such as this Hunter. I did some dry brushing and a matte spray on the body. And then the head is by Fetclone, who is an amazing painter. If you follow my channel, you probably have seen his work before. I will have him linked in the description below, but you will see a lot of his work in this video, such as this incredible Imperial crosshair head. There's some people that think that the bodies on these figures are a little bit too skinny and not as bulky as they should be to kind of match the commando design in the show, that sort of thing. But I think with these more realistic human heads, the bodies just look a lot more appropriate. There's an artist on Instagram named Camino Customs that does incredible work customizing figures with a lot of 3D printed parts from Skylu 3D, and you can see how much bulkier Hunter looks in those photos. I actually do have a figure from Camino Customs coming up later in the video, so make sure you don't miss that. This is another Fetclone head of Grand Moff Tarkin. I did do a custom hand on here. It was really nice to see a young version of Tarkin in the show. He's a pretty significant character, so I'm going to put him over here kind of towards the main characters. He's kind of one of the main villains of the show, so he'll go right there. Season 1 also delivered a lot of really fun cameos, such as Cad Bane and Toto 360. So that Toto 360 figure came in a convention-exclusive 2-pack, which is pretty difficult to find, so I did have to 3D print my own and put it on one of my hexagon helmet stands just to keep him elevated so you could actually see him on the shelf. I did do a lot of customizing on this figure, and Frederick's figures helped me paint the face, just bringing out the detail in that body and kind of correcting the color of his skin. But I'm really happy to have both of these figures on the shelf, and they are going to go right here. By the way, these hexagon stands are available to download and 3D print on my Patreon. I designed them myself, and they have become very popular. I think you will enjoy them if you have a 3D printer. Give them a shot. The Clone Shock Trooper was a re-release of a figure kind of that we'd had before. This time it had a pauldron, and it was missing that black helmet stripe. I really like the look of the black helmet stripe, so I did that with a Gundam marker. The only thing, though, is it faded a little bit, so I need to reapply that. But this figure's been in storage. I don't really have room for it on my main shelf. If you watch the Andor finale, you will recognize these characters and these shields. These were 3D printed by me. I resin printed these here. These are available on my Patreon as well. I used a piece of the Black Series plastic window to make the window there. But if you remember from episode 6, when Captain Hauser gives that speech to the clone troopers, they are all carrying riot shields. These aren't the exact same design. I will need to go update that. But I thought this would be a cool way to display a Phase 2 clone on my Bad Batch shelf. And the Phase 2 clone in the newer body hasn't come out yet in the Black Series, so this is what we call an AliExpress.com custom figure. This is the Phase 2 clone helmet on the newer clone body. The articulation on this is not as good as a real Black Series figure, but it'll do in a pinch. Also, it really smells, and I think they use some sketchy chemicals, so, you know, use some caution if you were thinking about checking those out. Here is the SH Figuarts Battle Droid. This is a pain in the butt to pose. It's just so delicate, and, like, the fingers fell off of that hand. Like, the fingers did not need to be a separate piece, but they are. It is just, like, overly articulated and overly engineered for something so frail and tiny. It does look really nice, though. Like, the level of detail on it is really nice, and so I do choose to display that one, but I'd pretty much just keep it posed. It's not really fun to play with. It's just nice to display. I want to showcase as many clones as possible, so this is the Camino clone. This shows up very, not too much in the series, but it does show up, and so I wanted to have it on the shelf. This was the release from the very first line of the Galaxy packaging in the Black Series. Let's continue with the main squad here with Echo. This figure felt like it took forever to come out, but they really knocked it out of the park. I have no complaints about this figure. This is a custom head from Fetclone, so I will never be putting that helmet back on because I would hate to risk scratching that beautiful paint job, but I just love the combo of like the animated look mixed with Tamara Morrison. Just, his work is obviously incredible. Next is a figure that is resin printed, AZ-1, the little droid that chills with Omega. It does, with resin printed stuff, it's not going to have the same level of articulation, so you can see his arm was kind of popped out of the socket there, but I think it's such a cute little thing to have on the shelf, and so I want to have him over next to where we will place Omega. This little Clink figure is also 3D printed, has limited articulation, and I think I broke the antennas on his head there. This is an older figure that I just painted early on in my 3D printing and painting journey, so he could use a bit of an update, but it's not the worst figure on my shelf. This Omega figure, I wish she had the hairstyle and the head style, without that little silver medallion on her head that she has in the rest of the season. But I guess this is the concept art that they had to work with, or they just thought that this would feature a little bit more. But what's cool is that this body works perfectly for a young Boba Fett. So this is a repainted Omega figure with a head by Nuno. I'll have them tagged in the description below as well, so you can check out their Instagram. But he's gonna go stay on my Attack of the Clones shelf next to Jango. But we do have Rex. This was such a fun appearance in the Bad Batch. This is the Jedi Fallen Order poncho. I repainted it to match the poncho that came with the Captain Rex Bad Batch figure, and I did have to take off his shoulder pads in order to get it to fit. And then this is a Fett clone head once again, but I just think that that plastic poncho looks way better than whatever this is supposed to be. The blacked out clone troopers, known as the Elite Squad, were really cool looking figures. They didn't feature in the show as much as some of us expected, but I wanted to make this match the show a little bit more, so I did a matte spray coat and some dry brushing just to kind of lighten up the figure. They look kind of like a painted dark gray in the show, and so I just think that this looks so much better than the actual release that was actually very, very shiny. Fennec Shand was such a cool cameo to see in the Black Series, and she actually featured quite prominently, so I think it's totally appropriate to have her on a Bad Batch shelf, and those little bits of reddish orange on her outfit just make her fit in so perfectly with the aesthetics of this show and this shelf. We did get some Super Battle Droid deliciousness in Season 1 of the Bad Batch. I think this is Episode 6. We still somehow do not have a Super Battle Droid figure in the Black Series. Hopefully with the Clone Wars 20th anniversary coming, that will be a highlight of that line. But I do have this custom that is 3D printed from Whisper Customs. I don't think he's still taking commissions, but here is what that figure looks like. I got to go to Celebration in May of 2022, and I got to go to the Bad Batch panel in which D. Bradley Baker showed off all of the voices he does in the series.
I've never been inside an ion engine before.
It'd be weirder if you had.
These chambers are quite the engineering marvel. This blast primer coating is capable of withstanding...
No one cares! Keep moving!
That last voice there, of course, is Wrecker, one of the most personality-filled characters of the Bad Batch. This head, also from Fett Clone. Amazing likeness to both the character and Tamir Morrison, and then this 3D printed Lula that I painted myself. I just think it's so funny having this, this big guy has his little stuffed animal, so I had to include that in the figure on the shelf. And next, what might be my favorite figure in my whole collection is this Captain Hauser from Fett Clone. Just every part of this figure is gorgeous. This is the only full body that I have that was painted by Fett Clone. I've said his name like 100 times in this video, but this is kind of his moment to shine in this Bad Batch shelf series since it's such a clone-focused series. But I love just the paint job on the helmet even. I think it's a 3D printed helmet, so just a little bit more accurate than the one that is on the Black Series figures. And now everyone's favorite character, Admiral Rampart. Just kidding, this one, the figure doesn't really look like the character. I know they're trying to do like a more realistic version, but I don't think they really captured the likeness there. The chin looks a little cartoonish. So I'm still waiting on my custom painted tech head, but I did create the goggles and the data pad, which are actually free to 3D print on my Patreon. It is a free download, and you can resin print those. If you use like a clearish yellow resin, you can get that clear goggles effect. And Fett Clone actually did use my goggles in his head. He combined his sculpt with mine, so that's really exciting. I can't wait to get that in from him. I mentioned Camino in Customs in the video a little bit earlier. This is a Captain Gray that came from him. I really love the color pop on here. He was seen in the very first scene of the Bad Batch, and they did release him in TVC, so maybe we will see him come to the Black Series officially soon, but in the meantime, I really love this custom, and I just really like the little pop of color that it gives to the shelf. If you do have a 3D printer, I designed this Bad Batch cockpit set that has the computer, the chairs, and Gonky the Gonk droid, who does belong on the shelf as well. All the pieces are separated to be super easy to print and paint. Thank you guys all for watching. Please stay tuned for more videos like this, as well as lots of other Star Wars The Black Series content. I hope that you enjoy the Bad Batch Season 2 premiere tonight. I will be staying up till midnight to watch both of those episodes, if I can manage to stay up that late. Even though I featured a ton of customs in this video, I do think that there is a really nice offering of Bad Batch figures in the Black Series so far. Let me know in the comments below what you are looking forward to most in Season 2, or if you have any hopes or predictions for that series. Thank you guys all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.